And now I would like to introduce today's special guest. One of the big pleasures of being president of the Canadian Club of Toronto is in hosting the Canadian of the Year luncheon. The winner may not be someone you know personally, but you certainly get to know them through the course of writing this introduction. Today's guest is someone that I knew only by reputation before she was chosen as our Canadian of the Year. But after speaking to her and reading all about her in preparation for today, I want to emphasize what a pleasure it is to introduce our special guest, Bluma Appel. Bluma. There are few Canadians who are so famous, and while infamous comes to mind, that they are known by their first name alone. It helps to have a distinctive first name, of course, which our guest today has, but you also have to earn the recognition, and that our guest certainly has. The very mention of Bluma strikes fear in the hearts of boardrooms and cabinets across the land. Bluma Appel embodies Winston Churchill's rallying cry, never, ever, ever quit. This ability to hold on long after reason says to let go is what has made her, in the eyes of her beloved husband Bram, a first-stage rocket. Bluma's life work is to light up the sky in order that others may follow. She has shown us the light in terms of women's rights, in attacking the HIV/AIDS pandemic, and in recognizing the vital role of the arts in our lives. What do these causes have in common? Not only are they deeply important, but they were also deeply unpopular at the time Bluma first started banging the drum for change. This is not a woman who uses her influence to promote safe, established causes. There's nothing wrong with safe, established causes, of course, but they're really not for Bluma. Now you might think that putting your name on a theatre is a pretty safe thing. But think back decades ago when Bluma decided to help Toronto's small and struggling artistic community. Back then, no one was putting their names on theatres. But for Bluma, this was a line in the sand she dared us to cross. And people have. Take a look at the billions of dollars worth of arts facilities rising all around us. Most of us in this room know Bluma's public face, her extraordinary generosity, her abiding commitments, and of course her wild hats. But what many of us don't know is the private, and dare I say anonymous side of this very public person. Over many, many decades, Bluma has helped countless people and causes, insisting that her generosity not be acknowledged, let alone be known. Believe me, this was not out of fear or favor, but simply because of the enormity of her heart. In the Jewish tradition of tzedakah, this is the greatest generosity of all. Bluma is barely 86 years old. As I'm certain she will make clear today, she has much more to do, many more lessons in tenacity to teach us, a world of wrongs to right, and many more skies to light. So I will let her do just that. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me today in welcoming the Canadian Club of Toronto's 2007 Canadian of the Year, the incomparable Bluma Appel.
Sit down, please. Sit down, please. I'd better explain why I won't be standing. Can you hear me? Good. What you see here is a whiplash that I got 2 months ago and hasn't let go. And the worst news about this is I have no one to sue. And I thought, wow, this is really, if you're going to go through this, you might as well, eh? That's one of the big things. But boy, am I glad to see all these friendly faces. You really are wonderful, so I won't go wrong with you. And the other thing is I have to say a special thank you for Michael Burgess, who came in from Newfoundland. And I really wanted him here because now I can say I sang with Michael. And I did sing with him. You saw me. Did you, Michael? Okay. That's part of my, what do you call it? Now, I guess that's it. I'm going to try to do the whole speech sitting down. But if I fade, my wonderful friend Lorraine Thompson said she would take over and do the rest because sometimes I fade. So here I am. And really, I am so honored to receive this award. The Canadian Club and I go back a very long time. I was among the first women in Montreal to attend their meetings. We few women felt like pioneers. And now receiving this recognition makes me realize how quickly time passes. It was only 60 years ago. But it was about 70 years ago that I refused to sit for entrance exams to McGill University because, being Jewish, I needed straight A+ to qualify. For everyone else, it was B-, and that struck me as unfair. And that was 1936, and I was already involved in fighting discrimination and prejudice. And though my parents were keen on education, they had no objection to my opting out, and they rather favored marriage to education, which might hamper my chance at landing a husband. And I have to tell you, I sure landed a good one. He's over there, and it's only 67 years that we're married, and I expect him to be around for a lot longer. So remember that, Bram. Well, I didn't go to university. I didn't get a degree. But 65 years later, I am now Dr. Bluma Appel, having been given an honorary degree from the University of Toronto. So what does this prove? If you live long enough, anything can happen. And with a little luck, you can learn some things along the way. Now, getting this recognition from the Canadian Club is truly an honor that I could never have expected. In the past, you have honored great Canadians who have made history. Well, I merely lived history. I was an observer and sometimes a participant in most of the last century. I learned early on, you enter every door that is open to you, because you can always walk out and they might never open again. So I spent my life looking for doors. A locked door particularly intrigued me. And I never gave up looking for the key, because behind every door I found some kind of treasure that added to the mosaic of my life. I discovered you can learn a lot more from your failures than your successes. Failures can be your greatest teacher, and I have had many, many failures. And I learned that history and failures should not be repeated. The arts were my earliest failures. I tried music. After 6 months, my teacher begged me not to come back. True. Art, I was told I might have been a pioneer in abstract painting, even though I was attempting figurative. Well, acting, I couldn't even get a part in a mob scene. But I did learn to appreciate, to understand, and enjoy the arts. And so I got involved. I ended up owning a great gallery in Montreal. As for music, I live it vicariously and have endowed some music scholarships. As for theater, my first venture was producing a play off-Broadway. It was Jean Genet's Maids, and it was in the 50s. Later in 1963, I produced Olympia Dukakis's first play, The Opening of a Window. I spent decades in New York producing plays, and my record is rather unusual. I have 100% failures. But I have to tell you, I had a lot of artistic successes. And my husband made a deal with me. Whenever I come to him and say, I want to invest in a play, he says, please don't say you're going to invest. Just say you're going to spend some money on a play. So that's why we made a deal on that. I don't know whether Moses Neimer is here, because he told me he might come. That was one of the exceptions, because I was involved with him and Tamara. Anyway, I was fortunate enough to be in New York during the most exciting time in American theater. I saw the original of A Streetcar Named Desire with Marlon Brando, The Glass Menagerie with Uta Hagen, openings of My Fair Lady, South Pacifics, and was lucky to meet some of the greats in the theater because of my friendship with Richard and Dorothy Rogers. So all in all, my failures added up to one great, wonderful, and exciting life. And along the way, I learned to love the arts and their importance to a civilized society. So I started proselytizing, and some called it badgering, which led to just simple fundraising. And I found there are 4 steps to fundraising. First, you decide on your victim, and then you stalk them, then you encircle them, and then you entrap them. As he was one of my first victims and one of the most generous, I have to give you credit for. You weren't easy, I just want you to know. Anyway, so I have to tell you, I started by appealing to their better nature and care, comfort, and compassion. Well, it didn't work too well, so I switched to fear, greed, and guilt. That got much better results. It really comes down to blackmail or bribery. Blackmail, you don't want to look cheap. And bribery, well, we'll name a theater after you. Irresistible. Well, back to the beginning. As a child, I watched electricity happen and change the world. I saw a car hit the streets. I saw planes take to the skies, and slowly radios and telephones began to enter the home. And oh, the wonder and joy of our first refrigerator. Who would ever have imagined that in such a short time, practically every child would have a cell phone glued to the ear, that the internet, iPods, and blogs would take over our lives. In my time, social programs were introduced and labor established its place, women found their voice, and democracy thrived, and Medicare was born. All this led to a quality of life we could not have imagined. I lived half of my life in a world that was still innocent. Then came the rude awakening, the atom bomb, Korea, Vietnam, the flower children. And we entered the age of dissension, permissiveness, and entitlement. The first casualties were a generation of confused and traumatized parents, worried that they had become obsolete, no longer respected, no longer looked to for advice or guidance, called on only for a check or the laundry. Their values, culture, behavior were no longer relevant to be passed from generation to generation. So the roles were reversed, and parents started learning from their children. I told you of some of my failures. Well, here are some modest successes, and it involves a little name dropping. In 1955, if any of you can even think of that far back, was the first conference for the Atoms for Peace in Geneva. It was opened by President Eisenhower, and it was the first exchange of peaceful information. Through a series of crazy coincidences, I was left there. And because I was there, I met and spent time with all the chief nuclear physicists of the time. Homi Bhabha of India was the president of the conference. The other chief physicists of their particular countries were Isidore Raby of the U.S., Sir John Cockcroft was the Brit, Enrico Fermi was the Italian, and Winogrado was the Russian. It was a pretty heady bunch. And I was there to look after the Paul Corporation, the filtration booth, which is a company that my husband had started. Well, they were exhibiting in the adjoining commercial center. And first day, I got no interest whatever. The second day, a few happy scientists stopped by. By the fifth day, the traffic was terrific, and I thought, oh boy, our product was great, and business would skyrocket. The day before the exhibition closed, someone from a neighboring booth came over to show me a picture in a foreign magazine. There I was, standing beside my large sign, which we had started out as filtration. But on the second day, someone had changed it to flirtation. Now, that's an absolutely honest story, but I suppose I shouldn't complain because I sure got a lot of traffic, and I was made a... You know, I was acting as a hostess with the president of Switzerland, who I think his name was Petit Pierre at that time, but couldn't understand. I just thought I was so great, a little head down. Anyway, that was in 55. I'll take you up to 72, because that also has a lot of name dropping. I created the American Friends of Canada so that Americans could give Canada works of art and get a tax benefit, because they had made a great deal of money in Canada. And amongst my board, the board of 25, were David Rockefeller, Henry Ford, Armand Hammer, and another 20 of that caliber. In 1975, the United Nations Year of the Woman, I was appointed by Prime Minister Trudeau to act as a liaison to industry. And I got every Canadian bank to put a woman on their board. Psychiatry. Well, Diana Eaton and I started the C.K. Clark's Psychiatric Research Foundation, which later became the Canadian Psychiatric Research Foundation. In 1986, my most challenging, most daunting undertakings was CANFAR, the Canadian Foundation for AIDS Research. I don't know whether you can think back to 1987 and know how difficult that was. Those were the challenges of my past. And what about the future? What about the future? I now, at 86, I feel I face my greatest challenge, and that is how to deliver an alert. It's a difficult subject. Islam is one of the world's great religions, and it is being hijacked by radical extremist fundamentalists. And I'm aware that a single sentence, phrase, or word that I might say may be taken out of context and exploited by the media. But please understand, my aim is to stimulate debate. We have entered an era of rising religious intolerance. We now casually accept the racism of radical extremist Islam. I believe that some media, and left-wing academia, those protected by tenure, play a large role in bringing us to this point of intolerable tolerance. Consciously or not, they have helped create a climate of political correctness that chokes all healthy and open discourse. We tolerate others' beliefs, no matter how intolerant those beliefs are. And you have to ask yourself why. Is it fear of being politically incorrect or fear of violence? The global challenge of radical Islam is still not recognized in the West, except for some countries in Europe. And for some of those countries, it is probably too late. For too long, we have not risked speaking out for fear of being politically incorrect. Many have said they do not speak out because they fear being called racist. This has nothing to do with racism. You can call it religionist, because this is a call to recognize the danger of extreme fundamentalist Muslims, no matter to what race they belong. Well, the West is in the beginning of the struggle to preserve their culture, democracy, and freedoms. We are vulnerable because democracy is fragile. It carries the seeds of its own destruction, and our indifference to the threat is the enemy's greatest weapon. And so, I ask, why are so few public voices taking a stand against radical extremist Islam? Be they Christians, Jews, or moderate Muslims. Daniel Pipes wrote, "Radical Islam is the problem, moderate Islam is the answer." And I say to you, speak out, support others who speak out, because it can be very lonely out there. And I always think, where, oh, where is our Winston Churchill, who will stand up and cry loud and clear, appeasement does not work. And I just hope I haven't offended anyone with this, because certainly that's not what I want to do. And I consider my greatest success is that I remain an optimist. I still hope to see the time when we live with shared values, not shared roots, blind to race, color, and religion. Thank you. We're going. Time for dessert. That's good for now.
Thank you, Bluma. And before you relax totally, we have some questions for you. First question. Oh, thank you. Besides yourself, who's the most interesting person you've met in your life, and why?
Oh, that's so easy. It's my husband. Do you know of anyone? Do you know of anyone who you could live with for 67 years and he's never bored you? It's driven me nuts, but he's never bored me. So that's it. That's easy.
Okay, that was a cop-out.
Oh, no, it's true. Yeah.
What has been your toughest cause to champion over the years?
What is what?
What has been the toughest cause to champion over the years?
Which is the most difficult cause?
You mean now?
Over the years.
Championed over the years.
Over the years. Well, what I'm trying to do now, and I'm trying to do desperately, is to see what we can do about how to integrate our Muslim community all over, who make great citizens no matter where they are. And I think there's a great deal of fear in them. My biggest challenge to find is to get them to speak out and say we are like everyone else. And like everyone else, we have our extremists, and we've got to see what we can do.
Thank you. What's the most important thing you've learned from your failures?
From my what? From my failures.
From your failures.
Failures. Well, you know, I'll tell you something. I never went into anything without expecting to fail. So what happened is that if it was a success, that was pretty much a shock. And then I try to figure out what did I do, and I don't know. What I learned from my failures is don't do it more than once in the same one. There are plenty of places to fail.
Thank you. How would Canada be different today if you had been elected to Parliament when you ran in 1979?
Well, I would undoubtedly have become the Prime Minister, and I'd have... and John Turner is here to say he would have helped me, right, John? So I would have had all of these people to help, and certainly I would count on Robert Kaplan. And so I would be in good shape, and I would be the Prime Minister, and then what would I do? I haven't the biggest idea. So, but I really think, and I'd like to emphasize it, I think our biggest problem today is, especially for the young people, is our environment. And if we don't cherish it, I don't know where you're going to be without it, you know? Something to think about.
Okay, just two more, Bluma. Bluma, why are you a supporter of the Canadian Comedy Awards and Festival in London, Ontario?
Oh, hey, you need some fun in life. And I think I always wanted to be a stand-up comic, and they give me a chance. Of course, I give them a lot, you know, and I have fun for a week. And if anyone wants to come, it's in September, I think, in London, Ontario. We have a lot of fun. And, you know, that's where the fun is. You've got to have laughs, right? That's it.
One last question. I think it's an appropriate last question. What's next for you, Bluma?
What's
Next
for you?
What is next for you?
Well, I've got my plate full with what I'm trying to do. But I have to say that my most serious one is seeing what happens now with how we can get out of the mess we're in politically, what happens now with the things that are hotting up all over the world. And I'm trying to take a little bit at a time and work through a lot of those things by talking to people and knowing what we have at stake. And hopefully they will take it up, but I'm hoping definitely that the young people take up this thing and work towards finding some solutions about what we seem to be heading into politically. And when it goes, it's awfully hard to turn the clock back. And I've lived through the big war. I was born just after the Great War in 1914-18. But I went through the terrible aftermath and and then we head straight into the 30s and watch what was happening when Hitler came to power, and suddenly all democratic life that we were leading and thought would go on forever was being broken down, and we ended up with that war, as you know, in 1939, lived through that, 1945. I remember all of the major events of that war. I remember where I was in the exact day when the atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and then Nagasaki. And I've kept watch of what's happening because I realized when I was very young how fragile democracy is. If you get a dictator, they can come in and make laws which have to be passed, and if they're not, you're done away with. We have to get the thing, work together for everything. So I guess it's something I will spend whatever time I have left, and if my neck clears up, I'll go around talking to more people about worrying about where we are today. I can't make up my mind whether the environment is more important or not, but because whatever we're doing with the rest of the stuff will hurt the environment as well. So I don't know, I've got a lot of friends here from the environment. I know that Joe McGinnis is here, and I know that, what's her name is here? Where are you? And Pollution Probe, and they know, and I want to know what they think is more important the minute I get out of here. Okay. Oh, Patty, Chilton, where are you? Anyway, there you are, wherever you are. So you look after that, okay? That's it. Thank you.
Well, that's all the time we have for questions. Thanks, Bluma, for being such a good sport. I would now like to call on Helen Burstein, Vice President of the Canadian Club, to extend our thanks to Bluma.
Oh, there.
A member of the Order of Canada, an Order of Ontario, an Honorary Dora Award, an Honorary Doctor of Laws from the University of Toronto, a theatre that bears her name, and now the Canadian Club of Toronto's 2007 Canadian of the Year. These are just some of the honors bestowed on Bluma Appel in recognition of her remarkable range of achievements. Bluma has entertained us today with her so-called failures, but it is her fighting spirit and her many successes that leave a lasting impression on all of us. Many relentless and results-driven people can be rather serious and, frankly, rather humorless. Not so with Bluma, as we have seen and heard today. She is one of the most serious people I have ever known, and also one of the funniest. To have a sense of humor and a love of laughter, these are great strengths in life, and no doubt, Bluma, they account for your remarkable and eternal youth. Ann Landers once said, "Class has a sense of humor. It knows that a good laugh is the best lubricant for oiling the machinery of human relations." And of course, Bluma doesn't need anyone to tell her that. In fact, you probably gave that advice to Ann Landers. Armed with class and humor, along with her remarkable generosity, passion, and goodwill, Bluma has immeasurably enriched the arts, fought injustice, and worked tirelessly to put important health and social issues on the national agenda. In fact, Bluma has been a social activist and philanthropic powerhouse in this country for more years than most of us in this room have been alive. Bluma, we are honored at the Canadian Club to be honoring you here today. I'm now going to ask Nick Chambers, my co-vice president of the Canadian Club Board, to join me here to officially present you with our Canadian of the Year 2000 award. Nick?
Thank you. Got to get up for this. Never get another one. Bye. Oh, wow.
So, there. Since 1992, the Canadian Club of Toronto has presented the Canadian of the Year Award to an outstanding Canadian chosen for exemplary leadership in their field, be it business, politics, the arts, or sport. This year, the club is proud to present the award to you, Bluma, for your outstanding leadership as a volunteer, a philanthropist, and a champion for women's rights. Please accept this award not just as our Canadian of the Year, but also as a great Canadian inspiration and a national treasure for all time. Thank you, Bluma.
Thank you, Nick and Helen. Thank you, Bluma. This concludes today's luncheon. Thank you all for coming today. This meeting is now adjourned.